Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of the SkyTemple Podcast, an exercise and enthusiastic rambling about Explorers of Sky ROM hacks. My name is MaxSchersey, coming live from the US West Coast. I thought I was going to do that fast.
Finally
by
messed up
yakkomon.
the intro.
Yep. Suffering succotash. Yeah. Good times. How's your last 2 weeks?
It's been good. Getting up to Christmas. I think the day we're recording, I think the 11th of December here in Australia. I think today is the last day you can shop online before the National Post Service can't guarantee your gifts will arrive before Christmas. So there will be some frantic Christmas shopping tonight, but at least it's not at an actual. Well, we call them shopping centers here. You call them malls.
Okay.
At least it's you don't have to fight the crowds. You just gotta. The only thing you have to fight are stock limits and shopping carts.
Yeah, that's for real. Look, all I'm saying is, call me the Grinch. I hate how anywhere you shop becomes fucking unusable in the month of December. I'd be only shopping online. Well, so got to work around all that good stuff. But I did do my shopping, and it is done. So there's no like hard date like that in the US, but just in terms of these people lie on their shipping dates. You gotta assume it's gonna be a week, maybe 2 weeks later than what it says. So I think given that context, I have enough of a safety net where hopefully gifts are going to arrive. And then the spirit of giving, holiday season, shout outs. That's great. Yeah, that next episode we have after this is going to be, this is the 14th, the next one's going to be the 28th. So I guess this is where we should say happy holidays and all that good stuff.
Yeah, Merry Christmas and all that jazz.
Merry Christmas, yeah.
All right. I guess I should move on to the news because there was a few different things that were brought out in the last couple of weeks. There's been an update to a hack called Poke Wanderer, which I will admit I actually didn't know existed until now. But apparently it is, and apologies to the Kitchen Sunk, or that's their handle at least on SkyTemple. But essentially, it's a hack that aims to bring PMD's gameplay closer to the more traditional Mystery Dungeon games, like Super Mystery Dungeon. It was one, but Sheeran the Wanderer, the I guess the what's it called? The source of all. It's basically every Mystery Dungeon game is derivative of Sheeran the Wanderer, so it's like the OG one.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, there's an update for that. Apparently, it's called the Bidoof update, which tells me that
Special
episode 1, and also stuff to do with apparently the cutscenes as well during the expedition have been edited as well to maybe reflect that. I haven't played it myself. Might one day, who knows? But yeah, check that out in the SkyTemple hack directory. Another one that was made by now I'm not going to pronounce this one correctly, but Corvidae Kerbidae. This one is a 20-minute debut hack demo 0.1 version release for a hack called Meow Destiny. Again, I haven't played this, so I don't know what it's about, but it does have a content warning for swearing, old school humor, and fourth wall ignorance. Oh, hey, maybe I could like this one, but I'm a bit older than I'm a bit old for Adult Swim humor. Let's see, but yeah. but yeah, it's about an Esper and a Skitty, and I can only presume it's a very humorous hack. I'm just looking at the images on the hack directory website now, and yeah, it's pretty irreverent, pretty like stupid, and it's probably a whole lot of fun too. So check that out. And also Blorg, which was one of the Hack Jam 3 contenders, and also nominated, shortlisted for Hack of the Year as well. There's been an update to that too. Just a minor formatting error, but a good reminder that Blorg does exist, and it
was
a
submitted for Hack of the Year. I should correct that. We have not. The judges have not voted, so we don't have nominations yet.
Sorry, are you shortlisted as submitted? Yeah.
Shortlisted. My bad. I missed you said that.
Yeah. English is my second language. My first is Australian.
That's facts. That's facts.
But there's been a new update, but that's only it's only a few sort of minor formatting errors. I think no gameplay or story changes that, but that is a hack that I am looking forward to an update for, because there was one plot thread in that game that due to time constraints got left very unresolved, and it was probably the one of my favorite characters from the game. The old team Tiny, Flabebe and Joltik, they were awesome.
The character whose their arc is that they didn't have enough time to appear in the game because the devs ran out of time.
Yes. I love a good fourth wall plot thread.
Hey, Max here, editing after recording. We missed one other very important thing in the news section, is that we spread misinformation last podcast. Oh no! After we were talking about Explorers of Infinity, the creator of the hack came in the comments section and said that the demo, in fact, does not end at Post Town in that hack. Just reading off the comment, says there was a soft lock there, but it's fixed now. I also had no idea about the hype on Twitter. I barely use it, but I am glad so many people are excited about it. Unquote. So there you go.
But we are not talking about Blorg today.
Not in this episode.
Sorry.
No. Talking about PMD Lonely Roads. So I see, Yakko, you have a couple things written up at the top.
Yeah, I guess
my you go first. My bad. I cut you off.
Yeah. No. Look, we do this in one take, guys. Embrace it. All right. No, I really wanted to talk about this one. This was my suggestion to have an episode on this, because I really see this as a SkyTemple success story. Lonely Roads is the type of hack, and the type of, and Okami, the creator, is really what we want this community to be about, and what the Discord servers and all that about. Okami joined the server on September 25 in 2022, just in case you are listening in future years. I will specify that year for you. September 25 of 2022. On October 12, so not just over 2 weeks later, he released his first playable demo. So this is a real example of a creator discovering SkyTemple and then just jumping straight into creating their dream hack. Because we do see it a lot, that people, they come in, they get really excited, but then they still seem a bit gun shy at going at it. That they feel sort of overwhelmed. But Okami was one that just jumped in, wanted to learn straight away, and wanted to put whatever vision they had in their head for what hack they'd like right into the game. And that's what I really like, just in general, just the story, the hacker's journey through this, and sort of it reminds me a lot, and I hate to self-indulge here, it reminds me a lot of me creating Retold. I think I created Retold about 3 weeks after I found SkyTemple and joined the server, and that was back in a time when it was really small and still in beta. So yeah. I also wrote here, if you haven't played Lonely Roads and wondering what it's about, Well, I guess my point is it unashamedly goes all in on the ironic, I don't know if it's ironic, but it goes all in on the cringe and embraces it. It's a Riolu Shinx team, so that's a flat that ticks that box. They're both loners, another tick of the box because of their past actions. Shinx is going through a massive guilt trip while Riolu is running away from his past. It's just classic angsty fan fiction, but it's delivered in a way that I certainly enjoy it and want to play more of.
Yeah, it's good. Don't let that description scare you. We so for a couple points you said. One, I think this was both of us kind of were in that same box of we found the server, then right away it's like, all right, stop fucking around. Let's figure out how to do some basic edits and learn on the fly, and let's get this fucking project going, right? So to that point, someone that's doing that is pretty cool. So someone who just like does not care, and they're just gonna start not only making the hack. What really made us want to do this episode is not only did he come out with one version right away, he came out with two versions. You know what I mean? A lot of people will come out with that first build. They'll just find the server, just grind it out for, you know, a couple of weeks to a month. Then they come out with the first version, and then they, you know, either they don't pace themselves and they get burnt out, or they just get bored of it and move on. But this project, like based on how there's been consistent updates, and not literally, this is only the second version of the game, but just like consistently talking about it, always like brainstorming new things, trying to figure out new stuff, and just the fact that again, there's not been a lot of delays so far. I have reason to believe that like this one might actually finish. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
exciting. That's exciting.
We need more full length hacks like this, like just full length hacks in general, like the in the story space. Like, you know, we need something other than Spirit. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. I think so. This whole thing about just starting right away, it's been such a. I've made a point to try and ask something along the lines of this almost every episode because it's just so interesting to me to get everyone's take on it. We've had a lot of people come on this podcast and say stuff along the lines of like, well, what I do is I just try and like pick up a bunch of extra skills in the down months, you know, in air quotes. I really hate saying that because there's nothing stopping you from making a hack outside of the hack jam. I will I've said that many times before, maybe not on this podcast, but there's nothing stopping you from making a hack outside of the hack jam. You know, you don't have to wait for the hack jam, but the way that a lot of people tend to do it is, well, during the time when there's not a hack jam, I just mess around with a bunch of stuff, build up my skills, maybe see if I can pull some inspiration, see if technically I can pull some stuff off, whatever, get better at XYZ thing that I know I'm going to need for my next project. And then every 6 months they release something. And again, I'm not going to say that that's wrong at all because the results speak for themselves, right? A lot of people, there's been a lot of really great shit that's come out of the hack jams. A lot of people really like it, really enjoy it. People get into it. It's a huge event, you know, feels like very celebratory of everything that goes on in the community, etc., etc. But that's not the only way you can do it. You know, you can also just jump in and make your hack, and nothing is stopping you if you don't want to be bound by making one hack every 6 months. So cool. What was the next thing you said? Reading your bullets.
About the cringe.
The cringe. No, I don't know if it is. Like if
I don't know. I couldn't think of a better word to describe
right,
it.
Right. I know what you're saying because it's very like fan fiction-y. This is like Oh man, I'm pretty sure we haven't brought this one up on air before, but it's very interesting to think about how whenever something like this comes up, and by the way, I'm gonna throw this out here now. Yes, obviously this is a biased perspective because of the hack that I made. Okay, so take this with a grain of salt, whatever. Don't roll your eyes too hard at what I'm about to say. I think that there is an element of like when you're making a ROM hack, right? ROM hacks are fan fiction. Okay? This to me this is just a fact. Okay? I've had people argue with me about this like ROM hacks are not fan fiction. They are. Okay? You're taking an established IP and making something that when someone picks it up, the only time they're going to pick it up is if they're already familiar with the franchise. They're already going into it with the mindset that this is not canon. They're not bind by the shackles of canon. Am I right?
Yeah.
And there's certain expectations that you have going into that based on other fan works. Fan works don't play by the rules. This is the thing that people have to understand. Fan works are basically their own unique world. And when we talk about Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, like, look, agree with it or disagree. A lot of people in this community are big, like the fan community is so fucking huge. It's basically its own damn world. You know what I mean? There's so many people that just get into the series almost through osmosis, right? Like without playing the games at this point, through fan fictions, fan comics, and whatever. That has been. I mean, I've been on and off following Pokemon Mystery Dungeon stuff online since like I don't know, like the mid 2000s on forums and shit. That's always been there, dude. Like that's always been a part of the community. So if you are trying to make something for people who like PMD, there's probably going to be crossover there with like fan fiction type tropes, and that's just the truth. That's just the truth. And you can embrace it or you cannot embrace it. That's the way I think about it. So, and so that's just saying like these tropes exist, right? This hack isn't done, so there's always the possibility that, let's say the tropes are subverted, a thing that usually happens to some degree in a work, right? Once again, kind of thinking about my hack while this happened. I think it was, I don't want to call anyone out, but someone, when this hack came out, told me that this shit has a lot of similarities to Explorers of the Spirit. Okami has not played it from the interactions that I have had. It's just totally unrelated. But getting in that mindset, I have reason to believe that by the end of the story, this is not going to be what we say that. If their thought process is anything like mine. So
I will say I forgot to write this down, but I have told you about this, Max. But I think the other comparison to Spirit that I picked up, which is purely coincidental, was my main character in Spirit ended up being the game chose a Shinx for me, and as you know, the main character of Spirit is quite a temperamental and angry Shinx, and so seeing the same personality or similar personality qualities in Lonely Roads as Shinx, like immediately I was like, wow, this is so much like Spirit. Like I was like, Okami, you have no. I was telling him that he had no idea how similar, like it felt. That I felt like I was almost playing like an alternate version of Spirit or something. It was just the similarities were uncanny, just through coincidence. Just the fact that my playthrough of Spirit had a Shinx, and this main character is a Shinx as well. It was just fun. It was just a funny coincidence.
Good times. Okay, so that's enough with like the meta element of it and why we wanted to pick this game. Blah blah blah. Let's start talking about it a little bit. Um, things I liked. I think so. Like you said before, it's Shinx your player character, or Shinx your partner rather. Riolu's your player character. I like how it seems like whenever a Riolu or a Lucario shows up in a SkyTemple hack, they're just a generic shonen anime protagonist. I'm a big fan of that because that's exactly what he is. Again, leaning into the fanfiction tropes. Um, that's kind of what he is in lore too, right? Like he's just fucking super cool guy,
Think so?
transparently.
Yeah. I seem to remember when Lucario first came out that he was like meant to be like the cool marketable Pokemon,
yes,
the new cool marketable Pokemon that was like supposed to be everywhere, and the movie made him, brooding and and mysterious, and yeah, and he got Smash representation too, and
that's
yeah,
right.
so
Yeah, that was that was in the whole era. That's very interesting to think that nowadays it seems like every Pokemon gen has one of those, and they all have their different quirk based on when they came out. Riolu Lucario is a very very like mid 2000s one of those. You know what I mean? Very mid 2000s. Um, but yeah, in this game, the Riolu is someone who very, heavily implied slash straight up confirmed. Like maybe not, I don't know, but like he keeps talking about like I hope I don't show up on the wanted poster and stuff like that. So he's done some shit. Um, it hasn't really totally been brought up exactly what that is in full specifics. Um, but you have there's a lot of like contrasting dynamics between the two, which is something that again, obviously given the hack that I made, I think that's really cool. It's something that like makes following two people the entire game a lot more dynamic and interesting when they don't always agree with each other all the time and follow basically the same arc. Um, and it's the two meet up. You have Riolu is he acknowledges he's running away from his past. Shinx internalizes his past, and then it is in this state where his past is like, just like that's all he can think about right now. Like he's kind of being consumed by it. So running away versus internalizing it. Riolu is super, he's Goku, whatever, super optimistic about everything, at least outwardly, because I do feel like there's gonna be a turn at some point, but just my theory. And then Shanks is the opposite, where he's just like super fucking jaded, cynical, doomer guy. So you have the two of them interacting and how do they deal with each other's personalities. And then Shanks is very like analytical, cautious. And while Riolu is kind of like head empty sometimes, more than sometimes.
he reminds me a lot of Gates, the Gates to Infinity partner, like hopelessly positive all the time, despite everything.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. That's part of why I think there's going to be a twist, because that happens in Gates to Infinity about halfway through the game. I think we're missing a little bit of information about Riolu right now.
Yeah, the best I can come up with, like the only thing that I can think of, like for me when I was playing it through, is there is a comment when they're doing the Treasure Town tour of how Riolu is very surprised that there are Kecleon shops and Kangaskhan storages in town,
Yeah.
and they didn't realize it. So it implies that he's running away for theft, but you sort of think, well, if it was just theft, why so like you know what I mean? Like there's still that sort of idea that there's probably more to the story than what's implied, like you're saying.
Yeah, definitely. There was just little hints like that everywhere, which they don't lead to anything right now. But I'm keeping that in the back of my head. Don't you worry. I'm gonna remember that. See, I'm gonna get to that third bullet in a second. I probably should have did that first, but whatever. Um, the overworld dialogue, I think is great. I think this is something that everyone, every creator, including myself, tries to do, and most people suck at it. Uh, Always positive podcast, but just trying to have random NPC dialogue that people actually want to interact with and actually adds to the game. You know, because the fact of the matter is about optional dialogue is that most players will skip it, right? So it's difficult to find a balance between having dialogue substantial enough in terms of adding to the world building, adding to extra character dynamics you wouldn't otherwise understand, having it actually be meaningful interactions that you want to get by talking to all the random people around town, versus having too much information locked behind that. So if you skip all those, you end up getting really confused with the main plot, because then if you do that, it's not optional dialogue anymore. You failed the assignment. But this hack does it pretty well. I like the recurring side stories going on with Team Tasty, of course, who gets a decent spotlight in this game, at least early on. We didn't even mention, but this the current version of this goes through, I think, Chapter 3, and then there's a special episode 1 as well.
Yes.
So yeah, a little bit of a spotlight on Team Tasty, as well as Team K9, who I think we're going to talk about the special episode later, but they're special episode 1's about.
Yeah, it's Arcanine, Puchiana, and their new recruit Electrite.
Electrite, yep. There's just a lot of even for super random, most likely not important later in the game NPCs, right? Because Team Tasty appear to be recurring side characters, but even then, if you talk to fucking Sunflora and Corefish and all those guys, when you talk to them, you still have a little bit of banter between the two main characters, and a lot of times it's something very, they say stuff that's pretty interesting. It gives you a little I didn't think that they would say that. It kind of recontextualizes what you think about the characters, especially because, like we've already said a lot, both of them are clearly not totally revealing everything about who they are, and there's kind of a front being put up. It's cool. I like it. I like also in the overworld, I like that there are birds perched on top of buildings.
Yes.
Big fan of that.
And Zatu as well.
Yeah, Zatu just stands on top,
staring at the sun.
Yeah, on top of the roof, staring at the sun, and not inside the what's it called? The treasure box? Treasure box opening place?
It's where you unlock the treasure boxes.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called.
I don't think I've ever used that in any playthrough of Sky or a ROM hack.
I always use it because sometimes you can get gummies or reviver seeds out of it. It's not always exclusive items.
Okay.
And even so, if they are exclusive items, I just if I'm ever in need of money, which usually I'm not in the game, but if I'm ever in need of money, I can sell those. Oh no, I use it for the swap shop. That's right. So there you go. I'm teaching you something about the mechanics
of this
game.
It's true.
You open your boxes, people.
Open the boxes, might have to do that. Yeah. It's pretty interesting how Zatu's looking out to the west every time. Um, so I don't know what that means. Except, does that mean like in canon, every time you go to Treasure Town, it's afternoon because he has to look at the west to see the sun? Is that how that works? I don't think that's how that. I don't know.
I think it's just. I think it just fits the direction of. It just worked better. That's just my theory.
You know what? That's
My
probably correct. Probably correct on that one.
game theory.
Yeah, game theory. Has game theory gone too far? Yeah. So to the point before about how you opened up with like it's cringe. Now cringe is in the eye of the beholder, folks. I'm a big believer that cringe culture is dead and died in 2019. We are in a post-cringe society, but no matter what way you slice it, there's definitely a lot of melodrama in here. And that's something that you like or you don't, but it starts early. It's really obvious. There's a lot of tells that there's going to be tons of new things being revealed at one point or another. And anytime that there's an opportunity for some extra storytelling, it's taken. Just like the stuff in the overworld, like we just talked about. But the first couple of like conversations between the two main characters and stuff like that, and the classic adding extra scenes at the nighttime guild bed scenes are really, really fleshed out. Once again, I don't want to mention Spirit like 500 times in this, but that's something that I really liked as well. It's perfect, you know. It's like guaranteed to get a little heart-to-heart moment at the end of the day. So yeah, definitely see where the heck's coming from with that one. And here's the thing, like with all the stuff that's being layered on, it's not just mystery for the sake of mystery, you know what I mean? There's always new stuff getting revealed and trickled in. There's like more questions that get brought up with the extra context. It's like, okay, then why does this happen? Maybe you don't get an answer to that yet, but you always get a little bit more information every time, a little more, a little more, a little more, a little more. So you don't. It feels like there's still a slow burn, right? Like there's still a build up to something that's happening. There's tension that's building. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like you're playing the game for 10 hours and nothing's happened yet. Which again, that's not easy to do. I will admit that it's really hard for me too to to try and make the beginning of the game interesting with how much how much time you have to fill in time with like little developmental moments, right? You can't just skip to the good stuff right away or you lose a lot of the impact.
Yeah.
But right now it seems like it's being paced pretty well. Can't really complain about that. Already touched on this earlier, but I think it's pretty clearly about to deviate from the original game. Not only because of like the ideas that are being brought up in the story and whatever, how the Explorers of Sky mold doesn't really make sense with a lot of the concepts and themes that are being brought up. But two plot-related points that should be huge red flags is that there's no relic fragment in this game. So, obviously the finale isn't going to play out the same way. And there's no dimensional scream, which means that we already talked about how they're not the same character. Explorers of Sky, blah 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 blah. Brought back from the future, and then like just think about
time
those.
Gears either.
Say that again.
I said there's no time gears either.
No
there's
time
no
gears.
Like,
yeah.
There's no time shenanigans at all.
Yeah. It's all. Yeah, I'm hesitant to say that because I guess you could shoehorn all that in, but it hasn't happened yet, and I don't really have a reason to believe it's going to show up yet at this point. Could be wrong. Who knows? But yeah, gonna get different, and I am excited to see where it goes. I think that like again to go back to the writing style, like this is why you would stick around. I think just if you love the melodrama, you love the suspense, you love the Okami like has an idea for what like the world building is supposed to be, right? With a lot of little like extra details sprinkled everywhere at every step along the way that you look. And a lot of it is still lore consistent with the original game, but it does make it feel like a very like it's emphasizing different things about the world than the original game does to craft a very different feeling kind of story, but with the same, I would say, the same tone. I don't know if you agree with that, because I guess the subject matter is certainly different.
Yeah,
But
it's a bit more. It is a bit more mature, like than the original, which I guess most hacks are. Yeah, just given the nature of the game, the vanilla game, and then people like us that want to tell a deeper story. But yeah, I think more mature is probably more what I would say.
yeah, that's fair. Um, okay, before we get into dungeon design, this is really should have said this earlier because this is just out of place now. But so when this hack got revealed, and it was revealed that the name of it was Lonely Roads. I think I was in like a call or a group chat or something at the time, and then someone brought up that the name was Lonely Roads, and of course everyone immediately starts talking about Green Day.
Yeah.
So of course you know me. I searched my primary source. I mean, I don't know.
For those.
You go first.
Oh no, you were about to. Sorry, I didn't know if you were going to name, like, if you were going to talk about the whole album or just the song title. But yeah,
Well,
keep going. You were about to say it.
Yeah. So, Boulevard of Broken Dreams is like. Granted, the lyrics of that song are like a little. Purposefully, a lot of the songs in the album are kind of like generic enough to be relatable, right? They're going for that angle, but a lot of what's being said is very, 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 very close to like the exact rhetoric that Shinx uses in this game. I thought that was interesting. Again, I don't know if it's on purpose because it's it's kind of easy to get close to that. There's nothing that's like super on the nose, like we're trying to do a deliberate reference to that song, whatever. But I don't know. Kind of interesting how there's the whole like running away from home angle as well, because has a lot to do with the concept of the album. Yeah. So I don't know. That just raised my eyebrows a little bit. I'm not totally sold on the theory yet, but
I am subscribed to the theory that the name the game's name wasn't chosen by accident. I do think that there is probably an American Idiot kind of vibe to it. Not in terms of I mean, look, I'm not a music guy like you are, but I actually, American Idiot is one of the albums that I have listened to from start to finish, at least the one time. So I kind of do know the whole, like, I sort of don't, I have a surface level knowledge of it, and to me, I feel like that, I do feel like the name of it is intentional in some way. Like it seems like an odd name to choose because it does feel it didn't it didn't.
Yeah, where does
I don't know.
Rhodes come from, right? That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah. It sort of it didn't feel like it fit. Like, well, it does fit, but it felt like the name is kind of interesting. Like it sort of it doesn't really describe, like, say, say when I name my hacks, I'm very deliberate in naming stuff like, PMD Retold, Darkrai's Revenge, Corrupted Core. Like I describe my hacks in the title, whereas this one kind of Lonely Roads. Yes, there's a surface level understanding, but is there something deeper at play? Now, we could be reading way too much into this, but I do feel like that calling something Lonely Roads, given the sort of the cultural impact American Idiot had, and the average age of hackers like us, or even
right.
like younger, like American Idiots kind of transcended generations now. I think even younger people know of it, and all of that, because it probably got a bit of a resurgence during the Trump presidency. Not to get too political, but yeah, it was. I do think that that the title is deliberate.
Yeah, so we're gonna turn into a music pod for a couple minutes. You are totally right that American Idiot's obviously a classic album, and like I just read stuff about like people 10 years younger than me who were like, I mean, like they weren't even born when that album came out, and they're just like, yeah, that's a classic. It's really weird because like the opinion of that album has this is where I get embarrassed again because I've been online for too long. But I've seen the general public opinion on that album change so many times. Like, it's good, it's terrible, it's good, it's terrible, it's good, it's terrible. Obviously, it had a lot of long-lasting public impact. I will say I listen to that album once a year on October 1st because that's when September ends. So we have to spin the album one time. Some tracks on there are like, they're in the pop punk canon, period. I don't care what anyone says. Like, Jesus of Suburbia, St. Jimmy, Gimme Novocaine, Holiday, all like super, super classic tracks. Some songs I'm like, you know, like in the past couple years when I listen. Yeah. I don't know. Best Green Day album is Kerplunk, then Dookie, then American Idiot, and You Can Keep the Rest. But yeah, I think everyone, like, to your point about it being timeless, I think pop punk is like, it's always been a youth genre. It's always going to be a youth genre. Like, even though it's not, you know, obviously the mainstream heights it was in the 90s and 2000s at all, that's still like super 16-year-old core music, period. Like, that's always gonna have a place. Oh man. All right, what's your bullet here about the two versions?
Yes, so I don't know, what versions have you played, Matt? Have you? Well, actually, no. You would have played both versions because you are judging for Hack of the Year.
Yep.
So yeah. So I don't know about you, but I played the Hack of the Year version on stream in front of Okami, and the dungeon design and difficulty is drastically different between the two when I played it. So there is a dungeon in here called the Nightmare, where it's just solo Shinx, and that is the last dungeon of the Hack of the Year version. I actually had to replay it because of save data shenanigans. Like the save, there was no save point before the Nightmare that, then the demo ended, but there was no save, so I had to play both twice. the first version, the enemy spawns are much higher than the current version. They do more damage, and the items are less friendly. And I ended up being the person that failed the most in the entire dungeon, in the amount of people that played it, because I sort of decided not to use, like, I played it as if I was playing it on hardware, and got stuck in one of those, like, sort of soft lock loops where you're not strong enough to beat it. You don't have the items to persevere, and so you end up, dying and dying and dying again. When I played the second version, the enemy spawns were drastically reduced, and like it was, it is interesting to see the evolution, I think, and I think it speaks to the evolution of this hack about how it's sort of people, Akami's playing around in SkyTemple, figuring stuff out. It gets tested, things get nerfed or buffed, and dungeons are made longer or shorter. And yeah, it's really interesting to see that there have been a lot of threads, and I know Burrito especially has been helping with the dungeon, or with just the hack in general, testing it and everything. But it's certainly, I would probably recommend playing the current version, but because it has more content. But the difficulty of it has become less than the hack of the year version that first came out, about a month or two ago. So I don't know if you had that experience, Max, where the difficulty curve suddenly went down with the second version.
I think a little bit. I think a little bit for sure. Granted, I think that in general, in early game, because that first build I believe ended after Drench Bluff. In those first couple dungeons, I think it's usually best to err on the side of caution, anyways. So, is that going to be indicative of the rest of the game? I don't know. But yeah, it does seem like there's definitely a little bit more leniency. Like in that last build, I do remember dying. I was kind of like caught off guard by how much damage enemies did. It was like, oh, okay. It's not like you don't have the tools to work around it. It's just like the assumption is that an enemy in that early isn't doing just a shit ton of damage to you in one hit. You know what I mean? But yeah, I agree. That did feel like it was changed.
Yeah. I think the main issue that I had with the original Nightmare that I kept dying was that the enemy spawns were higher than vanilla, and there were no max elixirs in the dungeon. So I think I think I ran out of PP once or twice if I hadn't have died first, because I had no reviver seeds either.
Yeah, that's another just like classic PMD design problem. I shouldn't say problem because it's not a problem, but thing to work around if you wish to work around it. The fact that the more enemies that you spawn in a dungeon, especially early on, again, before you have access to actually be able to buy or farm or whatever, get elixirs on your own, yeah, that can happen. You just run out of moves and lose. And you don't know if a player is gonna not get to the steps until that's gonna be the last room they check every single floor. One of the main joys about balancing for this game. My answer, when doing dungeon design for Spirit, was like, just drop 10 million max elixirs, so that's never a problem. Probably not the most elegant solution, but I don't know. I don't know how to solve that, to be honest with you. But yeah, again, like lowering the spawn rate, like you mentioned, is what happened in this hack. Definitely one way to do it. It does have the side effect of making it easier when maybe you don't want to before. Whatever. It's work in progress, or maybe this is just better. I thought it played better, personally. Yeah, different levers you could. Something I wanted to touch on. I think that there was some cool stuff that was going on with the dungeons to um, kind of complement the kits that both of them have. Um, Main things I'm thinking of are like Drowsy is replaced by Myena in Mount Bristol as the boss, and it happens, which is a dark type. And this occurs like almost immediately when you're like almost guaranteed, unless you skip every single enemy, to get to the level with Riolu, to where you get Force Palm, which feels cool. You get your new toy, and then you get to just spam it on the boss and win. Whereas if that was against Drowsy, you use it because, I mean, you could use it, obviously. Yeah, it's effective. Type differences. Little stuff like that. Riolu also, speaking of EP conservation, Riolu gets access to counter, which I actually ended up using a lot just to get some extra chip in, which is really cool. Jinx actually has some pretty decent support moves, which, I don't think that moveset has changed from the base game, but still, being cognizant of that fact and designing accordingly to know the fact that, like, hey, Jinx is going to be able to use a quick attack, so maybe to accommodate for that, these enemies are going to be a little more threatening if you just want to straight up 1v1 them and forego the use of that, whatever makes it feel like you're incentivized to use all your tools, all that good stuff. I think this becomes a lot more apparent in the special episode, which is definitely totally based around their kits in a way that feels cool. Again, like, not super difficult, but just feels engaging, feels like you're being rewarded for using the mechanics to your advantage, thinking about the level design actively. That's most of what I asked for out of PMD gameplay, to be honest. If you're not trying to do anything crazy and just like stay close to the original game, that's like mostly what I'm looking for. I don't know about you, but I just want to be engaged in one way or another, and kind of rewarding you for participating with the mechanics is a good way to do it, I think. So what do you think about the special episode, Yakko, with Team K9?
Yeah, I found it interesting. I found it interesting that because I don't think. Well, actually, no. There is another hack that I was about to say this was the first hack with a special episode in it, but no, there is actually one other that we didn't realize until after we went off air with the Argonian episode that we both forgot to play the Delusion special episode. So apologies to him, but there is a special episode in this one, which I like the fact that they're using the special episode slots to sort of flesh it out a bit more, to sort of do a bit of a side story with it. And yeah, this one is just about Team K9, and I think it a bit like the special episodes in Vanilla Sky, although they are sort of not. Well, I'm hesitant to say not relevant to the plot, but you sort of meet Team K9 just as an NPC interaction. So if you didn't miss, if you didn't talk to them or you didn't sort of interact with them, you might be thinking, well, why is there a special episode around them? And I think it's purely just just something that Okami wanted to do, I suppose, just flesh out the world that he's created a bit more. And yeah, it pretty much has I think, yeah, Arcanine and Poochyena, they get kicked out of their home and then go on a job to get themselves a lot of money and end up befriending someone from the Electrike tribe, who is then ostracized from the said tribe. And they, I guess, I found it quite interesting actually, because it's a dungeon through Ant Plains. It's pretty much Ant Plains, with Arcanine and Poochyena. What I found interesting about it was, I think, what I found interesting was that there was actually a save point after the boss fight because the cutscenes were so long. It's almost like a combination story. Like I think the dungeon is almost second to the story. I don't know if you think that way, Max, but I thought
that too. I get that impression from this hack in general.
Yeah, like I thought that was pretty cool. Like I thought it was cool though that somebody's actually using the special episode slots to decide to tell side stories.
Yeah.
To flesh out the world a bit more. I think that was my main takeaway from it, and I didn't care that it was mostly cutscenes and not much gameplay, because I don't think that's the point. I think the special episode slots really open up versatility in how you can plan your SkyTemple hack. Considering that, you could effectively have two different things running at the same time. There's a lot of potential that I think has been not yet tapped into by exploiting the special episodes. And I mean, I know that's not what's really happening here, but it is nice to see that a creator is thinking of using the special episode slots.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is another one of those, like, look how far we've come. It feels like not that long ago, or at least when I was checking on it during development, where it was like, yep, you can't change like 90% of the variables with special episodes. You're kind of locked into using, Bidoof special episode 1, those dungeons, stuff like that. Or at least that's how I understood. And this is very much not that, so that's cool. Very cool. And again, yeah, there is an advantage to using it in a way to flesh out the world, or like you said, to have concurrent stories, blah blah blah. I agree with all that. I think to your point about this being story first, yeah, I do agree. I think that this is like that's true, but what's being done here is still cool, right? There's stuff that's being done through gameplay that can still accentuate certain parts of certain characters, right? You have the whole thing where like Poochyena comes prepared, so Poochyena's idea of being prepared is like, here's a TM that beats all the people in the dungeon, right? And just by that happening, that's a very basic, like, okay, so speaking through the dev speaking through the characters to tell you to use this TM in the dungeon. I ended up not using it, by the way, because I thought that the kit I had was better, which is another thing I think is cool. There's a lot of customizability, different ways to get through it. But it'd be one thing if that character trait wasn't followed up on, but it's like you have the one that is a lot more cautious and careful happens to be the one who brings up, says the tutorializing stuff. Make sure that you're using your TMs. If you're gonna do that, then that's the way that you should do it, I think. There's that. The dungeon's cool. As soon as I saw that Sunny Day was one of the moves you had, I'm like, I bet the weather's gonna change later in the dungeon, and sure enough, it did. Yes. So I did not forget Sunny Day, and I used that to get rid of the rain every single time, and I laughed at the game for trying to trick me into removing that with dig. Sorry, I did not do it. Again, not to say dig's bad, because you could have put it over any of those, not just Sunny. Yeah, really cool. And the whole PP management thing, like we were saying before, still feels relevant in the special episode as well. That's another reason why you would want to hold on to a TM, by the way, because when you don't have max elixirs, you can always just use that and get a full refresh on one of your moves by getting one. That was I kept it around the whole time thinking that I might have to do that. Probably should have, because I ended up using basic attacks for the last like 2 or 3 floors, but I didn't. I don't know. I don't know what to say. This just been stream of consciousness most of this episode so far. It feels like, but it's like it's cool. You know, it's cool. Kind of sums up my thoughts on the whole hack. I'm like, yeah, this is cool. I want to see more.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Like it's
exciting.
I want to keep playing.
Yeah.
I want to keep playing. Like I'm going to be playing this like outside of any obligations. Like let's put it that way. Like it's a really interesting hack that I want to see
where it goes.
Payoff of see what the payoff and the setup and all that leads to.
Okay. And with that, about to get to the interview. Thank you all. Comment, subscribe, etc. Commercial. And we're back. We are joined by Okami for the second half of the pod. Be asking a couple questions. Having a good time. Yakko, you have better opening questions than I do. So why don't you start?
That is good. Yes, I do ask less questions than Max because but I've got a good one for the first one though. So you notably released a demo within the first 2 weeks of discovering SkyTemple. Talk to us a bit about that hacking journey and why you got stuck into it straight away and what possessed you, I suppose, to start hacking straight away.
Yeah, so I always wanted to like make something. Like I fooled around with like Pokemon, just the mainline series hacking years ago, and I found it absolutely impossible, so I gave up on that. And then I actually thought about doing like Ace Attorney hacks because I know those are possible, but also found that to be not easy. And then it kind of just stopped for a while, and then I actually found a couple videos on YouTube of some other people's hacks, and I was like, oh my god, I didn't even know that that Explorers of Sky could even be hacked. So I was like, let me look into this, and then I discovered SkyTemple, and I was like, all right, fuck it, let's do it. That was pretty much it. And then I just downloaded the program. I looked at the tutorial videos that a couple of people have posted, and pretty much just went at it. And I'm like, all right, let's just make something. Why not? I've always liked making stuff, and SkyTemple was just, I have no computer knowledge whatsoever. I still don't. And SkyTemple was just the easiest one to get a grasp on. So I just downloaded it and just said, let's make a hack. Screw it. Why not? And I kind of just went from there. I enjoyed doing it. So now it's become a big project now because I wanted to make something that was comparatively the size of the original Explorers of Sky, which I know is not the norm, but screw it, why not?
Yeah, definitely. I love that. That's what you describe of like, oh shit, now I have to get involved in this. I think Yakko and I could both relate to that because it's you fuck around. It's like, okay, let's see if this one actually makes sense to someone who doesn't have any computer science background or any of that shit.
Oh yeah, I have none of that. Also, it's crazy that it's been like less than 2.5 months, and 2.5 months ago I didn't even know SkyTemple even existed or just PMD hacking in general, and now I'm on the podcast, so it's pretty damn cool how fast everything turned out.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
I think that answer though leads to I think the first question you had about Lonely Roads. I don't know if you want to say.
Oh yeah. Thank you for the segue.
What?
I would have forgot that. So yeah, question I had was so the idea you had for the hack, is that something that like before jumping in you already had, because yeah, you said you started basically right away, just like let's figure out how it works and then let's start writing. So I figure if you do that, am I right in assuming that you kind of had the idea of a story already in mind, or did you just make it up on the go?
I had like a vague idea, and the first couple days of learning SkyTemple, I didn't even really do any hacking. It was just figuring out like what does what. It took me a whole day to figure out how to get an actor on the screen, which when they finally did, I almost like collapsed. I was so happy. But I kind of had a vague idea when I made those first few cutscenes. I mean, yeah, I kind of had somewhat of a story. I had nowhere near like the level of foresight that I do now on where the story's going, because I kind of know how I want it to go. Kind of, not exactly, but no, the first few cutscenes were just a very loose idea of what I wanted to do, and I'm just like, let me just make it and see where this goes, because it kind of bothered me. And like the two things that bothered me about the original Explorers of Sky is one, the player and the partner to me are just so similar in that they're both like, they'll just go whatever. There's no conflict there, and I like it when you have two very different characters as the protagonists. So that's one thing I wanted. And the other thing that bothered me about Sky was the fact that it feels like you're the only team that matters. You're the only team that gets anything done ever. All the other teams just hang out and don't do anything. So those are basically my two ideas creating the hack, is just two interesting characters that are very fundamentally different, and just making the town and the guild and everything feel way more alive than what it does in Sky. Because as I said, you're the only team that matters in the original storyline, at least for special episodes, because right. They do something in the special episodes, but in the main story, no one matters except you, and I didn't like that.
Right, yeah. I think that's something that we definitely both picked up on and talked about in the first half. It's like a lot of the things that are changed in this hack to this point, because, I assume that's going to be deviating more as it goes on, because there's a lot of hints towards that. But the beginning leans similar to the original Sky, but a lot of the differences come in the shape of things that make the world feel more lived in, expanding on the lore, that type of stuff, right?
So I definitely wanted to build more on that. And also, I kind of leaned pretty heavily on the first cutscenes in what was already there, just because I didn't really exactly know what I was doing. But as the chapters go on, I think it's branching more and more into its own thing, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. No, so you knew going in that it bugged you that there's a lot of the story is just kind of like a central focus on you and the partner. Really, I would argue mostly the partner, because you're kind of a silent protagonist, right?
You're like a borderline silent protagonist,
right?
I think you have like a couple lines at the very end of the game. Yeah.
So conceptually, why is that something that is important to you to expand on all that stuff so much? Why is that the one thing do you think that you always think like, this is what this game needs? Like, you need to add a bunch of extra NPC interactions. Like, why do you think that's the missing sauce?
Well, I just think that when the world feels like you're not the only person that lives there, it makes the whole game feel a lot more immersive in a way, because when nothing goes on until you do something, that's not really real. Because even in real life, if you life goes on even when you're not doing anything, if that makes sense. So I wanted to create something where it feels like you are not the center of the entire freaking story and world and everything. I just felt like when the entire cast of characters all has their own stories and their own goals and motivations and what they do in their time, I just think it creates a way more interesting dynamic than just everyone standing around waiting for the hero to do his own thing and save the day like usual. So that was kind of just my logic in it. I think about these things. I don't know if that's weird or not.
No, not weird at all. Not weird at all. I think there's everyone has different motivations for how they want to make their hack, and no two hacks are the same. And really, I think I keep saying this on the podcast, that and I think Max does too, is that Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is vague enough that, and such a clean slate enough that there are 100, 150 different variations of where you can take the story and keep it sort of relevant to the original world, the original themes, the original there's so much customization in it. And I think that's what I really enjoy about this hacking scene in particular compared to sort of other ones that have maybe a more stricter idea of what the universe is about, and so if that deviation happens, it's a bit jarring. This one, there's so many different elements you could poke at and improve and all that. And I think that's it's something that I really, really like about this world. And sorry, not this world, this community. God, I went JRPG there for a second.
But,
Too much Xenoblade 3. I just finished it yesterday, so I'm still in that kind of that typical trope of the future is ours to control kind of trope.
No, but yeah, I feel you because the hacks that I always liked, whether that be like Skyrim hacks or whatever hacks I'm playing on any game, I like it when it feels like if you told me that it was an official part of the game already and not a hack, then and I'm inclined to believe you, then I'd say like that makes a really good hack. I like the stuff that's so well made and so immersive that you wouldn't even know it's a hack if you didn't download it yourself. And those are the kind of hacks that I think are great, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do in this hack. It's supposed to be, supposed to feel like if you didn't play the original Explorers of Sky, would you even know that this is a hack? Is kind of what I'm going for.
Mm.
Yeah, that's true that you think about it, because we, like Yakko and I in the first half, we talked a lot about a lot of it in the context of like, these are the type of things that like people online, the PMD community, whatever, find interesting a lot of the time. But I think that's totally true that if you were to look at this in a vacuum, it's definitely distinct enough from the original game, and everything is like re-explained, right? There's nothing that's brought up in this game without context that I can think of. Like a lot of the, because you change some lore bits around in the game, but that's stuff that's like explicitly said up front, so there's no you don't have time to be confused on that stuff when it gets brought up later. That's definitely true. Good point.
Yeah, I plan on incorporating maybe some stuff like before the player and partner meet, like maybe the story before you meet them is the same as the original Explorers of Sky, and maybe I call back to that later, assuming that it's the same as in my hack, but I haven't figured all that out yet. I'll figure it out. Like, just for instance, like I have no plans on using this, like frickin' Bidoof's story where he meets Jirachi or whatever. Like,
yeah, that's already got ejected.
Yeah. Like maybe that, for instance, is still canon because that takes place before where this hack begins. But I have no plans on using that hack. Bidoof sucks.
There you go, Bidoof sucks. Right here first.
You heard it here first.
So I'm wondering, with some of these some of these recurring bits, which we didn't talk about this too much before, but damn it, dude, this is my first bullet point too. I said I think that Shanks' default face not being him smiling is so funny. That's one of the best bits in this hack.
Oh my god, that wasn't even my idea.
Oh really?
No, not at all. I didn't even make that portrait.
Oh man.
Isn't that the Shinx pensive emote in the Discord server?
No, isn't that one with his eyes closed?
Oh yeah. Have you thought about getting someone to implement that in the game? I think that would be funny.
That would be a good idea. I mean, like, you could just save and put it right in, right? Like that's important, isn't it?
Well, I mean, you'd need the background as
If
well, I
it-
suppose.
There's
If
no
it's a color
background.
limit.
If it's the right size, the right colors, yeah, and all that good stuff.
There's no background. Okay. But yeah, Gleck made that portrait in like 2
Perfect.
seconds. All right, cool. He was like, you know what this hack needs? Shix needs to look mad. So he was like, here's a portrait. I was like, okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's actually a good segue, because I'm wondering, because Yakko and I, or at least I haven't. I don't know if you have, Yakko. We haven't really used the that ROM hack testers channel, which is what I'm guessing you're alluding to when you say Collect made that.
Yeah.
It wasn't around when Spirit was around, I don't think, or if it was it. I think that was a later edition.
Yeah, that wasn't added to the Discord for that was like mid 2021, I want to say, but either way, how helpful has that been? Because it feels like that channel's seen a resurgence of people in like trying to critique each other and stuff. Like, I guess if for anyone listening, what do you think? What do you think's the best way to use that channel? Just post everything in there. Just post something when you're ready. Just always ask people for help. What do you think?
Oh my god, it's been so helpful. My first demo, which never got released public, was such a mess. I had typos in like the very first word on screen had a typo in it. It was so bad. But yeah, like whenever you have something that's like, playable, I think, just say, is anyone available to review something or critique it, and just post it there. Everyone has been super helpful, and I've critiqued a few of my own, and I've helped people out just to give back, because this hack wouldn't have been nearly as good enough if I didn't get a lot of people to test it and point out everything that I fucked up on, pretty much. So it's been really, really good and really helpful. So if you have anything that like is even in like a somewhat playable state, or even just one dungeon, or even just like a few cutscenes that you don't even know if like operate correctly, and you want someone to test it, I'd say just put it in there after you get approval from the mods, and yeah, people will take it and review it. Everyone's been super cool about it.
Yes, and for the record, both Max and I are SkyTemple mods, so we will be we no. Well, you're not going to get any
Rigorous
special
screening.
favors.
Rigorous
Yes,
screening.
rigorous screening. We'll just get ADEX to patch it. No.
Shout out to ADEX. I know you're listening. Yeah, that's great. The fact that we talk all the time about how the community is supportive, blah blah blah. I think if you're, if anyone's listening to this who isn't already kind of like someone who's active, or even someone who lurks all the time, and they might hear people say that and they're like, okay, but what does that mean? That's kind of what we're talking about, right? Like if you post something tangible, people will look at your stuff and say, like, in my opinion, this is stuff that like could be added, you could be changed, whatever. And just literally, like you said, finding typos. That is like the number one thing, man. I feel like it doesn't matter how many times you proofread the damn game. It's as soon as you show it to someone else, they're gonna find a typo in 2 seconds.
Oh no, you can never find every single typo. It's impossible.
Yeah, but I've been reading the ROM hack testers channel though, and I don't know how much you've seen, Max, but if you're ever making a second ROM hack, Burrito is ruthless. He is ruthlessly brutal about feedback about typos and stuff. He's got that laser focus, man. It's yeah.
That's
my first hack would have gotten an F from him if he were to grade it with the amount of funniness that
would have gotten an F. Oh my. So something I'm curious on, because I think this applies to both Yakko and I as well, in terms of you just like jumping right in, making a hack basically as soon as you find out the basic stuff. What have been the biggest holdups for you, right? Has there been any times where you've just like hit a roadblock and been like, well shit, I can't move on until I figure out how this works, or until I figure out how to work around this mechanic? What's the biggest one of those?
Almost always. I run into several roadblocks at least when I was starting out. I hit like a million roadblocks. I didn't know how dungeons worked. I didn't know how, just emotions worked, or reactions or effects or anything like that. But honestly, the thing that took the longest was just getting the actor on the screen. That was the only issue, where I had to work a whole day of just trying to figure out, like, how the hell do I get the player on the screen to do what I want? And why am I just staring at a blank background with nothing happening except the text going by? So that was the hardest part for me. There probably was a video that I could have found to explain it better, but I was too lazy. So I'm just going to do it myself. And, but yeah, the more you figure out, the less obviously you need to ask support with. And everyone has been super helpful in support and figuring out, like, why is this wrong? Why is this not working? But the more you go after things, it gets easier and easier. And now I feel like I have the basics pretty much down. When I do start adding more advanced stuff, then I know I'm gonna have to probably ask for help. Like anything coding related, like any ASM stuff or whatever, or special processes. I still have no idea how that works. I just put the code in and call it a day. But I'm probably gonna have to figure that out eventually. So that's been the most difficult. But it's at the end of the day, even though like a lot of stuff is difficult, it's been fun, and I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't have fun doing it. So
yeah. So when you're pacing yourself out, and you have to factor in all of that, like, oh, I might have to pause to like look up how something works. How does that work for you? Do you just set aside like a certain time to where like, this is where I'm going to do my coding today or this week or whatever? How does that work for you?
I don't really like plan it out like that. I kind of just be productive in something at all times. Like I'll open up the hack, and when I know I have a problem with something, the moment I open up SkyTemple, I'm like, do I feel like fixing that today? And if the answer is no, then I'm like, all right, I'm just going to continue the cutscenes and just pretend that everything's working fine. I can't see any errors here. So I just move on until either A, I feel like fixing it one day, or B, like it's getting to the point where it needs to be fixed. So it's pretty much like that. I don't really schedule out things like that. I work on things that in the moment, I feel like working on, just because I feel like I work better that way. Some days it's about cutscenes. Some days it's fixing errors. Some days it's just creating needless banter between all the characters and the towns, which is very fun, actually. And it goes from a day-to-day basis, pretty much.
That's pretty interesting. Yakko, I don't know how you did it. I'm curious what was for you. I would never be able to do that. Anytime I run into a bug, my brain immediately just like hones in on that. And I need to get it done, or I'm just pissed off. Like I need to have some kind of temporary answer or something. I don't know. That's crazy though. I'm sure that is a lot more efficient the way you do it. I'm not gonna lie. But
I mean, if it's like something like super serious, like a soft lock or something, then I'm like, all right, yeah, this needs to be fixed. But if it's like a visual glitch or something, or it's just something that like I don't know the answer to, and I don't feel like researching it, then and it doesn't break the game, it might just look ugly. I'll just say screw it. It's fine, whatever, and I'll just move on.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm like you, Max. I usually lay focused on that error to try and fix it. Although I am kind of moving a little bit more in the write it down on a list and get it done later kind of thing for Dark Christ Revenge, but I still feel the need to feel like I've satisfactorily completed a place like a segment of the game before I can move on. So I work very chronologically.
For me, like when I get something in my head that like I want to create, whether that's an idea for a cutscene or an idea for like, you know, dialogue in town or whatever, I need to do it right away. I can't wait to fix a bug to get it to work. So once I get an idea, that jumps the queue, so to speak, on everything. So that's kind of how I work.
So when you said that applies to like writing and random town banner and all that stuff. So do you go straight into the script engine and just start typing stuff there, or are you the type of person that needs to like you need to have your script typed out and then you put it into the game?
No, pretty much all the lines in the game are all just off the top of my head as I'm writing. There's very, very little that I actually planned out. I actually did write a script before I started hacking on the first chapter, and I didn't look at it one time. I wrote it, and I'm like, all right, when I start hacking, I'll refer to this. Didn't refer to it, so I just kind of write whatever comes to mind. Which I know a lot of people might struggle with, but that's just easiest for me.
Yeah, just straight from the heart. I think if you do that, you get a different feel. Is something I found.
Yeah.
Like when they're, I tried it a couple different ways. I found that like, personally, I did it different like by character. You know what I mean? Like some characters that are supposed to be a little more like lax in the game, I would try to do that method, and then ones that are a little more like careful and have a certain dictation or whatever, I write it out, and I think either way you do it, it shows, and that's kind of like part of your mood. I definitely get the impression that there's a lot of like the characters feel like they are talking off the cuff, if that makes sense. Like that's the impression I get when playing through.
Yeah, for sure. And also, like, just another thing on like Treasure Chant, I never liked that all the NPCs kind of talk at you. They just say what's on their mind, and then you don't give any response. So I tried to put actual conversations that you have with the NPCs in town, which I feel like just makes everything seem way better. Because like when they say like, "Oh, we're team this," okay, cool, that's it. That's all I got to say. So I tried to include a lot more of just fleshing out all the other characters. I feel like conversation's the easiest way to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question, and if it's too spoilery to answer, you can say so. But we did talk about in the first half about the name of the hack, Lonely Roads, and whether it was a deliberate reference or not. Like, is there is there like what is there a reason why you've called the hack Lonely Roads, or like? Not, or is it too spoilery to say at the moment?
It's not spoilery at all. I had a very rough first. This is a very impulsive hack, if you couldn't tell. Like, not a lot of forethought into this at all. So I made a very bad first name for the hack, which was way too long and way too edgy, and that was the very first demo that I made that Gleck gave an F to, which was fun. The F stands for fun. And I'm like, okay, this title sucks. Let me just shorten it. What can I shorten it to? All right, just Lonely Roads. All right, cool. That's it. And I like the road analogy. I'm like, is cool too, because, you know, both characters are lonely in some instance, and they're on a road traveling somewhere, metaphorically. So I'm like, all right, that's the hack name. Cool. Next issue. Time to write cutscenes.
Perfect.
That's
why can't it always
awesome.
be that easy?
Here we are, deep diving analysis into it, but it just popped in my head. I thought, you know what? Let's just ask.
Yeah.
No. The amount of depth in the title's like very shallow, at least at this point.
Well, at least we
maybe,
found something deeper in it. You should be.
okay, cool. Maybe there's something deeper in it, and maybe I did think about maybe tying it together a little bit more than what I did. I think Riolu has one line about the title. Everyone freaked out about it, like, "Oh, that's the title of the hack." He said it, but
As we all know, that is peak fiction when that happens. So.
oh my god, it's great. The credits can roll right after that line. That's all I need. So yeah, it was pretty much just a rough draft that I shortened into an even rougher draft and just said, all right, that's it. But I thought of adding more stuff to actually make the title mean a little bit more than it does now. So that'll be fun.
Cool. So, right now you're just winging it, making progress on the hack. Right now, do you have any like major goals, things you want to implement, like timeline for when you want to get a next version out, or anything like that? Anything to look forward to?
I already started the next part, and I'm almost up to the next dungeon. Job days are gonna come back, but I'm gonna try to make them job days. As in, like, all you do is just take a job from the board. You just take a piece of paper and just do a job. I'm going to include those still, but make them way more interesting by including story in between job days. So that'll be cool. But when the story does continue, I do have plans for where it's going. And the next part, I haven't decided when it's going to be released or even how long it's going to be. I don't want each part to be like one dungeon. It should be pretty substantial. So I think I have a rough idea on when in the story I'm going to release the next part. But when it's going to be done, I'm hoping like maybe like 3-4 weeks, something like that. So we'll see how it goes. But it's been really fun making it.
Awesome. Yakko, you want to ask your last question?
Yes, my final question I wrote here, and there basically this is your chance to bribe the judging, but you just have to answer this one question very correctly, and the question is. The question is, why is Chimchar the best Pokemon? 30 seconds, go.
He's not.
You didn't even think about that.
Do I still get the 30 seconds?
Keep going. Keep going if you have more to say.
All right, he's a Ghetto version of the Hoenn Fire starter, Torchic. He's not nearly as good. And he himself is only better than one other starter, which is the Ghetto version of a Pokemon, which is Pignite, who's even worse.
Oh no.
So Chimchar is, by fact, it's a fact that he is the second worst starter, only to Tepig. And if you had to give me the choice between Chimchar and the fat loser Bidoof, I'd rather take the Bidoof.
Oh no.
All right, time.
Tepig caught strays during that explanation, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think he was expecting that.
Yep. If you ever want my opinion on something, just ask me.
Perfect. Okay.
Now the real 30 second
the
pitch.
real 30-second question coming up.
That wasn't it?
In 30 seconds or less, why is Lonely Road's going to win Best Hack in Progress?
That was the big climax of the entire interview. All right. What was the question? I didn't hear you.
Why is Lonely Road's going to win Best Hack in Progress in 30 seconds?
That's probably not. But it was really fun to make, and you know, it's interesting that, you know, it was made with such little knowledge of actual ROM hacking or how everything works out, because I made that hack only playing like one other hack, maybe two other hacks, and I watched like one other one. So it was made with pretty much no knowledge of the hacking scene, of just SkyTemple, just in general. And, you know, if nothing else, it's an example of what someone who was a complete, you know, newbie like me can make, as if you know, figure out everything and put your mind to it. So I think it's a good example to set for anyone who might be thinking about getting into ROM hacking to look at.
All right, perfect. I didn't pay attention to the timer. I think he went over, but whatever. We're gonna keep all of it in.
All right, cool.
Perfect. And is there anything else that you want to say before we cut?
No, I think that's, pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for having me. As I said, it's crazy that I went from not even knowing this existed to being on the actual podcast. So it's been really fun. And, I'd like to be on again sometime if I didn't derail this thing as much as I think I have and you guys would want me back. So, yeah, I'd be on again.
No, derailing, we call that good content here.
Hey.
Absolutely.
So,
that's hype.
yeah. Yeah, thanks for coming on, for real.
I'd be on every week.
Every week.
Yeah.
All
right. Next episode, you heard it here first. We're going to talk to Okami again.
It's gonna be Okami, episode 14, 2 weeks from now.
Hell yeah.
All right. See you, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Cool. Later.